Good afternoon. Welcome to the Batman Show. Today we are setting to bed once and for all what is the greatest chase music ever composed for motion pictures. And this was Ian's idea, so the full weight of this task is upon his shoulders. Are you up to it?
Oh yeah, I've made copious notes, and I've listened to hours of music this week. So yeah, I'm up for it. All
right, I got like a couple of things. Look, Eric, why don't you show off your fancy list?
That's it. That's all I got.
Okay. Do either of you have like the number one of all time, or
like the greatest piece of action music ever written?
Ever.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, well, look, it's for me, it's always a toss up between two cues, and for the longest time, it was the Desert Chase from Raiders of the Lost Ark. But I actually think the Asteroid Field is a better piece. So that is hands down my favorite cue of all time, and the Asteroid Field is my favorite action cue of all time.
Well, that's it. We know there's no need to discuss anything else. Let's call it a day, shall we?
Was that yours too?
There are two top ones there. Yeah.
Well, I broke my list down into I did Indiana Jones first, but Desert Chase, hands down. And then I got the Jungle Chase, Boat Chase, Indy's First Adventure, The Basket Game, and Fast Streets of Shanghai. So
no minecar music.
Oh, I had the
don't
minecar
remember
music.
much of the minecar.
I mean, are we talking about chase music? Or are we talking about action music? Or
anything where they're trying to catch something or get something would be a chase thing for me.
Huh.
Yeah, I was kind of free and loose with my definition of chase to a certain degree, but I was thinking about chase. But Indiana Jones, I'm fairly similar. I had Basket Game where he's chasing after the baskets, after baskets. So that's Desert Chase, Fast Streets of Shanghai, the Minecar Chase, which is brilliant. I included Indy's First Adventure because he's being chased. Escape from Venice, Scherzo for Motorcycle and Orchestra, a Whirl Through Academe, and the Jungle Chase. That was my Indiana Jones selection for chase music.
They're all good ones. Can't complain about Indiana Jones. That's for sure. So
I also listed 61 in total on my
Oh my God.
Come on.
I was kind of really loose on my, because I just picked films that had great action music. So I might not be as detailed as you guys are, but I'm interested to hear more from you, Ian, what you enjoy specifically.
Okay, well, I'll go through the first 38 pages that I have. And if we have time, I can do the rest of it.
Do you have anything from Star Trek?
Do you know what? I was looking for something from Star Trek.
I got Stealing the Enterprise and the Genesis Countdown.
Yeah, Stealing the Enterprise. Yes.
Yes, yeah. Because they're being chased away from the So
yeah, absolutely, and that's my favorite piece of Trek music of all time as well.
Oh, I have got Star Trek, and it's not what you're thinking. It's from Star Trek 4.
Oh, you're not going to pick Hospital Chase, are you?
Well, no.
Chekhov's Run, perhaps.
I am. Chekhov's Run and Hospital Chase are on my list. Not because I think it's great Star Trek music. I think they're just I quite like those two tunes. They don't fit with the film really, but I enjoy them. So I wanted to get Star Trek in there as well. So shoot me.
Oh, there are two cues I absolutely despise. Absolutely despise.
I despise all Star Trek 4.
So Star Trek 4 has maybe 2 or 3 really, really good cues. I just think that tonally, the fact you're writing like overly comedic music for a comedic scene, for a comedic film, it's just so on the freaking nose. But you're right. It just kind of, the urgency of saving, sorry, who's in the hospital? Is it Chekhov?
Chekhov, yeah.
Yeah, you know, like it just becomes a bunch of bumbling idiots, and I don't like that type of action music. Much like I don't like hearing, you know, like a rock song or a pop song over a chase sequence. It just the urgency and the it just doesn't seem like it's dangerous anymore. It just becomes overly fun and there's no drama. So I'm trying to think of what other like whatever there's some chase stuff in Giacchino's scores. At least I think there is, but I can't remember anymore.
I listened to Speed Racer, but
Yeah.
you would think, yeah, but I mean nothing that really just you know.
I mean, when you're thinking about Giacchino, I think the ultimate cue is the chase music in The Incredibles, the 100-Mile Dash, which is about as furious as Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and there's actually a reason behind that. While he was writing The Incredibles, I think it was a DM or an instant message or something from Giacchino. Goes, do you have a soundtrack to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom? And I guess he didn't. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, can you send me the Mind Chase material from that? I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't think anything of it. And I didn't think that was going to be his inspiration, but you can listen to it's called 100-Mile Dash from The Incredibles. And you can hear those kind of fast running strings that are very much out of the minecart chase. Having said that, and I wish I could remember the name of the cue, but there's a cue that was written by Franz Waxman that is, again, another kind of minecart chase cue, which sounds eerily similar to what Williams wrote in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And I know that doesn't help at all, but man, I wish I remember the name of the score and the cue, but Waxman wrote something very, very, very similar. It'd be interesting to hear if that was actually in the temp of Temple of Doom.
And
so what else you guys got?
What's it called? You said the 1,000 mile.
It's I think it's 100-mile.
100 mile
or 100 meter dash or 100 something dash. It's been such a long time. Jeez, I'm sure someone in the chat's gonna let us know. Incredibles. Yeah, 100-mile dash. Again, a fun play on words. Ian was so upset at me for dissing Star Trek 4.
He left.
He left.
That's how you start drama on the YouTube.
Well, Big Al is right. I mean, The Matrix Reloaded, absolutely. And that whole highway chase is absolutely brilliant. I can remember getting that album and playing it over and over and over and over again for weeks on end. Couldn't get enough of it. I mean, as short as it is, and there's only 17 minutes of Don Davis's orchestral material on that album, it still plays so well. Although it's great to have the expanded edition, especially for I mean, it's not chase music, but it's probably one of the greatest piece of rejected music ever written, which is the original Burly Brawl music that was then changed at the last minute to include more kind of techno and electronics and simplify it a bit. But Don Davis's original cue is absolutely maddening. And then, of course, there's Chateau Swashbuckling, which is a completely different action track compared to what we got in the film. Which, again, that's the kind of cue where it's really cool and it's got a really good beat. And thank goodness Don Davis is still involved in that cue, but it just sort of takes away a bit of that danger. It just becomes hey, this is the Matrix. Isn't this cool? but that's a very minor gripe about that brilliant film score.
I take it you were talking about The Matrix there.
Matrix Reloaded, yeah. Huh. Terminator. I love. Sorry, is he talking about the Terminator chase scene? I'm not too keen on the original first score, but I think Terminator 2 is spectacular, and I think that the chase music in that score particularly is really, really good. And it's a score I used to say, like it works brilliantly in the movie, but it's really difficult to listen to on its own. But I'm actually appreciating it more on its own. The more I listen to it, there's some great material in that score. That low drone for the T-1000 is sensational. It almost works like the Jaws motif. It's very slow, but then starts getting quicker, and it's amazing. I just find that the upgrade in gear and electronics for Terminator 2 and what he was able to do with samples and whatnot just made that score much better than the first one, which, I mean, again, it's amazing what Brad Fiedel did just with what he had for the first film. But I felt that there was a wonderful evolution of the sound in Terminator 2. And that sort of sound gets lost in much of the next pile of scores that are written, which they kind of go off into more orchestral writing, which I'm not against. I mean, some of the stuff that Marco Beltrami wrote for Terminator 3 is pretty amazing, as with Danny Elfman, and but I think Bear McCreary actually did some great work for the Terminator television series. Really innovative stuff.
Ian, you got Terminator on your massive list?
Do you know what? I was listening to it before we went on air tonight, and I do think it's a great score, but it's not something I listen to a lot. And I was toying with the idea of sticking it in there, but I didn't in the end because I ran out of time. But I would have done so. But yeah, it's a stunning score.
What about Ripley's rescue and futile escape from aliens?
Mm-hmm. That's all brilliant. Again, the fact that all that fit with all the monkeying around they were doing in the little time that James Horner had to complete his cues. The fact that score still remained cohesive in the final cut is just sheer luck. And on top of that, for the mess that James Cameron or the mess of that production was, and the fact it became so successful, the fact that it was even a good movie, is amazing. But James Horner got an Academy Award nomination for his score, which I think is quite special. And that's one of those nominations where you're like, okay, the music branch is really paying attention this time, even though the voters let everybody down that year.
Who won that year?
Around Midnight. Beat out Around Midnight. Around Midnight it's by Herbie Hancock. It's a lovely jazz score, but there's hardly any original music in it. And I think that won again based on the popularity of the soundtrack, and but it beat out Ennio Morricone's The Mission, which is just unforgivable.
Yeah.
So, and I think Hoosiers was nominated that year as well. I think Star Trek 4 1986. I think that was nominated as well. I mean, there's a pile of much better scores that were released that year. But I mean, I'm glad Aliens. I mean, it's a genre score, sci-fi action. I mean, that stuff doesn't get nominated unless you're John Williams. So, yeah.
Another almost purely orchestral chase music, Cutthroat Island.
Yep.
Carriage chase, I think, is stupendous.
It is. the amount of energy that is sustained throughout that piece is mind-blowing. I mean, it's a great chase scene to begin with. I mean, this film doesn't get nearly enough attention or positive attention that it deserves. It's not a bad movie. And the fact that it sunk, I think it sunk what, Carolco Pictures?
Yeah.
I mean, that they were already screwed whether Cutthroat Island was going to be a success or not. But the fact that nobody went to see it is really sad, because you're right. I mean, John Debney's score just gets lost, and I've done my damnness to highlight that score over the years. It's one of my all-time favorite scores, but there's just so much depth in the music, and I mean, just themes galore, but the movie itself just gave Debney this incredible canvas to write huge, expressive, large-scale music. And Carriage Chase is just one of those sequences where, I mean, the stunts are bananas. I mean, even Gene Davis did that one stunt where she, jumps off the carriage, runs across the top of the tunnel, right? And then she tumbles over in a somersault back onto right into the seat. And what's so great about that sequence is you get to see it. It was filmed in slow motion. And so there's no BS as to whether she was the person doing the stunt or not. She did many of her stunts in that. And I think she also did many of her stunts in Long Kiss Goodbye, or Long Kiss Goodnight. Sorry. It's Long Kiss Goodnight, right?
Yeah. Long Kiss Goodnight. One of the best Christmas movies ever.
It is. And so there's so much amazing in-camera stuff happening in Cutthroat Island, especially one of the grandest explosions you will ever see committed to film. And the fact that they had to blow up not one but two boats, because I think they screwed up the first one, is just it's excessive. But the film looks beautiful. The cinematography is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, say what you will about some of the casting, but it's a fun pirate movie. I would say that besides maybe the first Pirates of the Caribbean film, it's up there. I mean, none of the other ones could match Cutthroat Island, in my opinion. It's a wonderful movie that I wish more people would revisit it, and I wish more people would celebrate John Debney's score.
I think it was one of those films that critics came out and absolutely slaughtered. And what people tend to do, if critics say that it's a bad film, they get people think, oh well, if the critics have said that, then they must be right. So they'll get behind it and say, yeah, it's a bad film. But secretly they'll be in their living rooms going, I actually like this, but I can't really say that out loud.
Right.
But I've been saying it out loud ever since I saw the film.
Yeah.
I just think it's one of those old-fashioned spectacle films, which is great fun. It's got everything going for it, but just people won't see it because they've heard bad things about it.
Correct.
And I think go and see it, and you'll be surprised.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
Did it come out at Christmas time that year?
I'm not sure.
Might have.
I'm not sure.
I can look that up while you guys talk about your next one, your next choice.
Okay.
What about The Buffalo Hunt from Dances with Wolves?
Oh, that was going to be my next one.
All right.
Yay!
Now, which version do you like?
Well, I'm referring to the film version, which we had to wait for the longest time to actually get. I think the first time I heard it was on a City of Prague re-recording.
Right, that's right.
Before it actually came out on an official. So, yeah, but I love both versions. But the first version was that John Barry's actual what he wanted, and then Kevin Costner said, "No, I want something. I want."
Kevin Costner
Western
said, "No,
music.
I want Elmer Bernstein."
Yeah.
To Elmer Bernstein, which he was very uncomfortable doing. It's fine, but yeah, the other one actually really works too. But it's so very Western pastiche, the film version, but it's still fun to listen to. It's a very different cue than the rest of the score. I mean, the original one actually kind of fits in with the with the style of score. I mean, as much as it's a very big and lavish score, it's not overly over the top, and kind of stays within that kind of that calm demeanor of Barry composition, and it doesn't go too far overboard. And then and I've talked with a lot of John Barry fans, and that's mainly one of the things that they like about John Barry is just the simplicity of his music. Again, not simplistic, but the simplicity of it, the way he writes. All the instruments are very clearly laid out, and there's not a whole lot of mush. And where I try to defend make David Arnold film scores, much like, we could talk about some great chase material. Would you put Miami International up there as chase music from Casino Royale? I mean, it's a very, very, very dense piece of music, but I think I gravitate more towards that type of music with a lot going on that seems like organized chaos, rather than hearing something rather slow. I'm not saying that John Barry's action music is slow, but I never really gravitated towards John Barry action music, with the exception of maybe The Living Daylights. I think there's a lot of superb action material in there, but it just seems like it just kind of plays through the scene. And again, a lot of people seem to like that. It just complements what it needs to complement. Whereas, David Arnold and the Michael Kamen's of the world, even the Thomas Newmans, just went kind of balls to the walls, and it was just all kind of everything in the kitchen sink, but not kind of like a Brian Tyler or Hans Zimmer type of score, where it's just a kind of like an overwhelming barrage of sound. But yeah, John Barry is not one that I would say was a great action composer, but I could be way off on that thinking. And I guess it depends on whether you're a fan of the early John Barry Bond scores and like that style and some of the other things he did, but I never really gravitated towards Barry for action.
I did. I mean, I remember seeing on Her Majesty's Secret Service for the first time when it came on television. Must have been about 77, 78. I already loved that theme tune from the main title. And then when it was used in the two ski chases, that was just the cream on the cake for me. That was just, that set me over the top of excitement just when that theme kicked in, and it just and ever since then it's been ingrained on me, that theme and the way Barry uses music in some of the James Bond kind of action scenes. Mm-hmm. So yeah, no, I like it. So those two ski chase scenes were on my list here as well. But it's funny you should mention David Arnold from Casino Royale, because I put down African Rundown, mm-hmm. The foot chase from the beginning, because that includes the first kind of meaty version of the main theme from the film. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
While we're talking about David Arnold, the bike chase from Tomorrow Never Dies.
Yeah.
And the parking garage.
Yes.
Yeah, parking garage, because that was with propeller heads as well. So yeah,
he wrote some dynamite stuff for those. Yeah. I mean, Tomorrow Never Dies is incredible. But even the opening chase sequence to The World Is Not Enough is a banger.
Yep.
Yeah, I kind of really miss his contribution to film music. Although it's interesting, he did make mention of that on Twitter the other day as to why he's not scoring films anymore. And he got tagged in this pathetic Twitter account called Soundtrack Memes. It's really mean-spirited. But he was talking about, I'll find it and I'll bring it back to the conversation, because Arnold finally addressed why he's not doing as much work in film, but I now got to find where it is.
Well, while you're looking, Hector brought up The First Night from Jerry Goldsmith.
That's a great score. That's a great score.
The ambush scene.
I haven't seen First Night, so
I've seen it, and I love the score, but it's decades since I've seen the film, so I can't really.
Oh, the movie's not
well.
that old.
It is 90.
Okay, I was trying not to
95. 27 years ago.
Okay.
So I was right in saying decades, and it literally is decades. So.
First Night. I remember buying that for like $6 in the used bin, not thinking anything of it, and then taking it home and going, "What is this masterpiece?" But that was at a time where, I'm pretty new to soundtracks. I got it like probably in 98, 99, and I kept on reading on message boards were people just absolutely dumping on Jerry Goldsmith and his writing for the 90s, as it wasn't as good as the 80s or the 70s. It wasn't as complex and yada 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 yada.
Who says that?
Sorry?
Who says that?
Oh, there's many complain about the fact that Goldsmith changed his style almost immediately after Total Recall. And that's another one we can talk about, Total Recall.
That whole thing was Chase score, yeah.
Yeah, but his style completely changed to the point where, and I forget what the actual quote is, but Goldsmith mentioned it's somewhere along the lines that it's just too much work for zero appreciation. And he's like, what's the point of me, let's say, blowing my brains out over some of this music when I can just simplify it and you still get the same sort of effect? Again, don't quote me on that, but it's sort of what he was kind of getting at, where it's like Total Recall is a seminal action score. It's one of the best of the 90s, one of the best scores of the 90s, and probably one of the best action scores of all time. It's so complex. There's so much happening in it, but it just becomes overwhelming when he's like, he's literally like, what's the point? Why write like that when nobody cares? And so his style in the 90s up until about when he died became much more streamlined. It's still impressive, but it's a much more of a simplistic style compared to some of the stuff he was writing, let's say for Capricorn 1 or Outland, Rambo, some of those meaty action scores. And he also was going more down a route with his he had to do it once, Ian, just once. I'm glad you're keeping the tradition going.
Oh dear.
Usually it happens at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
It's like, what's going on? But I have no problem with First Night. I think it's wonderful, and I think it's one of his last all orchestral scores. There's zero electronics in it whatsoever. And I don't know how many more he wrote after that were purely orchestral. But again, it's such a lovely score that in any other movie would most likely be celebrated to the end of time, and it's just stuck in First Night. And that's Goldsmith's career, unfortunately. Just getting stuck in those mediocre to absolutely terrible movies, but writing incredible music for them.
That was the thing. Even if he was writing simpler music, he was such a genius that even he was still writing great music, but maybe not putting 100% effort in. He was obviously putting the effort in, but it's
I think it's not so much not giving a crap or not putting in the effort. I think it's just kind of streamlining a bit and kind of peeling away some of those layers to get to the actual point of, let's say, the scene without having to overcomplicate it and really just Total Recall. I can't imagine how much actual work was done that where he could write maybe a similar action cue that would take him maybe less time, still be just as effective. And And I think that's what many Goldsmith fans were like, she's just not the same. And he wasn't. It's clear. But I mean, again, not saying that he didn't write any complex material, but I mean, like, his last score, Looney Tunes, is absolutely bananas. That is just, you talk about absolute complexity in his writing. I mean, it's like he was, reborn back in the 80s for that score. But then again, he was always inspired by Joe Dante. And I mean, it's too bad he never got a chance to finish the whole thing. But what he did write for that was incredible. A lot of crazy stuff going on in that score. So when he was truly inspired, you could really tell. But I mean, I like the simplicity of The Edge. But The Edge, I think, is one of his best scores. But again, because there was a simple story to be told, but he also got underneath the drama and really fleshed out the characters and their motivations just with the music, but even the chase material. Again, going back to the kind of the Jaws effect, he added this growling trombone figure throughout the score that represented the bear in that film. And it's perfect. It's very, very simple, but it's perfect. And when you're watching that movie, you hear that. You don't need to hear the bear growl. You hear those trombones, and the bear is nearby. And but even some of the action music, all the percussion and all that, and all the odd meters, it's still very Goldsmith. But it's not like Total Recall Goldsmith. Still doesn't mean it's not good.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny you should mention Looney Tunes Back in Action, because that was on my list as well.
Wow.
For Car Trouble, the chase in Las Vegas. It's just a brilliant cue. It's just he did a kind of little westerny theme.
Yes.
Love that. So every time if I ever put that CD on, that's always the first track I go to. Car Trouble, then I'll visit everything else.
Yes, that's one of his last great cues. It's amazing.
Yeah,
a lot of fun.
I was really surprised when I got that album for Serbian. Didn't they do the extended release for that?
Yep, they did.
Yeah, I ordered that, and I'm like, whatever, man. I'm just buying it cause. And I put it in, and I'm like, wow, this is like, I would not have guessed I would have that much fun listening to that album.
Yeah.
So if you people haven't bought it, track it down and buy it. You will not be disappointed.
Highly recommended.
I think it's on sale at Varese at the moment. I think you can get it for
even
$10.
better.
Unless you live in the UK, because we don't have access to Varese anymore in the UK.
Right.
Yeah.
That is a sad day. That's horrible. Anybody who likes physical media out in the UK, especially when you're coming from Varese, it's just, God, that sucks. How expensive it is to ship things. It's unreal.
Yeah.
Well,
anyway,
if we have to, I can get it shipped to me, and then I can forward it to you.
That's a good plan. I know a lot of people that still do that. I got a friend of mine
that would be nice,
who will send stuff to Canada and then have his stuff sent to the Czech Republic or Slovakia. Sorry. And it's much cheaper to do it that way.
I take it he lives in Slovakia. Because
Yes.
if he doesn't, that's just pointless.
Yeah, yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Going back to David Arnold just for a minute. So, yeah, he was tagged in this conversation, which actually started about this stupid soundtrack memes account complaining about Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. But then this guy mentioned, he says that the soundtrack memes account the fact that it's Arnold was not chosen to score the Mendes Bond films is probably one of the reasons why David Arnold is no longer scoring films. And so somebody tagged David Arnold and went, could you enlighten us about this situation? Because, we're thinking this is bull crap. And so David Arnold actually pipes in and he goes, "Good morning, everyone. The thing that took me away from films was the London Olympics. Then I wrote a musical which ran in the West End, started doing great TV that I was lucky to be offered, theater, radio, and production. I decided to put life first, all decision models my own. I think people's expectations of what my career should be aren't shared by me. I love film. I've recently done one called Confess Fletch, which was great. And that's mainly down to the director that he worked with. And he says he's one of his favorite people. So, but David Arnold bases what he does on how much he will enjoy doing it and not where it might get me, because the only place I want to get to with anything which occupies my time is happy. That means saying no to some big projects, which some might consider foolish to turn down, but that's them thinking that, not me.
Much respect.
It's an interesting point of view, where, I mean, again, yeah, people just have this idea of what they think they might know. And here he is going, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, I'm sure he would love to be scoring all those ridiculous Roland Emmerich movies, just because it would offer him a canvas to write enormous orchestral scores like he did for Stargate and Independence Day and Godzilla. And I'm sure he would like to be working on Bond as well, but he's not just sitting there twiddling his thumbs. He's still doing the things that he likes. And I think a long career that he's had gives him that opportunity to do those things, to pick the projects that he wants to work on. And you can only respect that. I mean, yeah, it would be great to hear more David Arnold. Absolutely it would. But this is where we are.
Yeah, I must admit, I've known that he's not been sitting around with his thumb up his arse doing nothing, because he did all those Sherlock episodes, and one episode of Sherlock was like a film. It was an hour and a half. So he did what, 10 or 12 of those altogether. So that's 12 films worth of music. Mm-hmm. He's done loads of other things. As I say, he did the Olympics, which was 10 years ago now. But yeah, I think that's a brilliant answer from him as well. Just, I'm not doing what you expect me to be doing. I'm keeping busy. I'm doing lots of stuff, but it's for me, Yes. So yeah, so no, that's a great answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I have another Chase cue.
Which you got?
John Powell, Paycheck. Hog Chase parts 1 and 2, part 2 especially. I think that's first time I heard that. I thought John Powell could do a great James Bond film. I would love to see John Powell do a James Bond film. I think he's got that kind of. He's got a great affinity with action, with drama, with melody as well, which is something that's been missing from James Bond films for the past few years. But yeah, I would those two cues from Paycheck, John Powell. Discuss.
I couldn't agree more. I'll add on. Well, you want to hear John Powell in James Bond mode, then go pick up Agent Cody Banks. It's a spy genre film with it's a young spy. I forgot what his name is.
Frankie Muniz.
Yeah, that's right. And you want to hear Powell do a James Bond type score. That's pretty much, and that's early in his career too. But Intrada Records released the expanded edition of that score, and it's very, very, very good. Another one is any of the chase music in the Bourne series of scores that he wrote, especially Ultimatum. A lot of great, beefy, ostinato-driven action music. And again, you could say that the Bourne series of films, I think, might have been the greatest influence on modern action scoring, more so than Hans Zimmer, because Powell purposely decided that he's going to have the rhythms in the score basically work as the themes and the leitmotifs rather than actual melodies. Now, there are melodies, but I mean, once you start hearing that Bourne ostinato, that's from nothing else. It's that that's from Bourne. And so that became almost the blueprint for modern action scoring going forward. So But yeah, Powell would be an incredible choice for James Bond, no doubt. And I mean, going back to then, yeah, to John Powell, and we can go to Star Wars. I think the Millennium Falcon chase is absolutely mind blowing. That whole sequence,
Reminiscence therapy.
Yeah, that whole thing is. I mean, what a wonderful love letter, Star Wars, while also giving it a bit of a kick in the butt in the energy department, and just writing some of the most absolutely thrilling Star Wars music we've heard in I mean, besides John Williams. There's nothing I think that's been written since that's come even close to what John Powell did on Solo.
Yeah. Also, away from the action music, Powell wrote a lovely love theme as well.
Oh yeah,
Solo. That's gorgeous. Never hear mention of that.
There's nothing off about that film score at all. I mean, and I kind of expect it to be good. I mean, we all heard How to Train Your Dragon, but it's like, how does John Powell and John Williams mesh? And the answer is beautifully, brilliantly. And I just wish Powell was scoring more Star Wars. Yes. Oh. Nice. It's so. I mean, the start of the mine mission all the way right to the Maw stuff was, man, what a sequence of cues.
Yeah.
So unbelievable. The amount of storytelling that Powell does with his music there. He paid attention. I mean, this is the one thing that I think you, Daniel, would probably agree, and you probably would agree too, Ian, but don't let me put words in your mouth. But just the respect shown by John Powell to John Williams's material, and realizing, yes, that's the legendary stuff, and I'm going to take that. I'm then going to harness that and then sort of remold it into what I'm doing, but you're still going to know that score is from Star Wars. It's still going to have that Star Wars feel, but it's also going to be my own. And I thought, wow, that's just about the way the mantra for all composers going forward with Star Wars. But now it just seems like it's like, oh yes, we love John Williams. He's an absolute legend, but we have to now create our own vocabulary because we've shot this show in a different way, and yada yada yada. It can't sound like John Williams because blah 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 blah. And I don't understand that line of thinking. I really don't. I mean, even though I don't like Goranson's music very much for The Mandalorian, at least there's a sense of Star Wars there. It still is. He's brought his own style. And again, I hate all the action music in that series, but that theme, some of the big grand orchestral cues, although written in Goranson's unique style, all kind of seems like it fits into Star Wars, and you can tell it feels like Star Wars. But man, Boba Fett was terrible, and this new one, the Rogue One prequel, just seems like they're just doing different for different sake. I want to be proven wrong because I like Nicholas Bertel a lot, but I just don't think that dumbing it down and crafting an all electronic score and adding drones and this and that is all that innovative anymore. That almost seems to be the cliched thing to do. So, but we'll see what happens. But I mean, again, you're coming from a series that already has a pre-established sound, which was Rogue One, but you're like, oh no, we're doing something completely different. I'm like, that's weird.
Why? Yeah.
Right? So, but that's just me bitching again.
It's okay. Ian's the positive one. We all know that.
Mm-hmm. By the way, Ian, your top 5 video, I nearly fell off the couch when you brought your Blade Runner guy back in at the end of that, because I was like, I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. I'm liking this. All of a sudden, it's like, oh my god, what's happening? And the fact that he was chewing the DVD, I lost it. I had to pause it. Dog was wondering what the hell was wrong with me. It was very good. That whole series is a masterstroke. And if anybody hasn't seen it yet, go to Ian's channel and just watch the Blade Runner stuff that he's been doing, but also watch his top 5 video from today. I don't know. I might be the only one that finds it hilarious, but I absolutely love your sense of humor.
Thank you very much for saying that. That's
Since we're-
it's dumb, but it's fun.
And I like that stuff. I mean, my all-time favorite comedy is called Dumb and Dumber. So now you know where my brand of comedy comes from. So
Absolutely.
since you were bringing up Star Wars, TIE Fighter attack from Star Wars, and hyperspace from Empire.
Yeah. Hyperspace is an interesting cue. It's exciting, but also incredibly dramatic because you have that interplay between Luke and Vader talking while the chase is going on. That's tough. That's a tough thing for any composer to juggle and yet keep the energy of that cue going. And I think he does a great job with it.
Absolutely.
I can bring up one that you guys might not have heard of, but you probably should. And it probably is the... I could be wrong, but it is one of the earliest, greatest action scores and action cues ever written. And it's a score that doesn't get talked about enough and doesn't get talked about having as much influence on film scoring as the way a film that came out either the same year or a year later, written by the same person. I'm talking about Max Steiner. Now, we all know the influence of King Kong, but before he wrote that score, he wrote a replacement score for a film called The Most Dangerous Game. Now, The Most Dangerous Game contains, from what I remember, like an incredible action set piece that lasts the remainder of the final act of the movie. And Steiner wrote thousands upon thousands of notes for this action sequence. And it starts with the chase and goes all the way through to the finale. And lasts roughly, I want to say 7, 8, 9 minutes in length. I mean, the original chase cue is just under 5 minutes long, and it is glorious. So the film was released in 1932. What's so amazing about it was that it's a replacement score. The original composer wrote something, the producers absolutely hated it because it just didn't fit the tone of the movie. And then Max Steiner was called in. And for the amount of music that he wrote for this film score, and if you have heard it, you'll be shocked to hear that Max Steiner wrote it in 2 weeks.
Wow.
It is. And I mean, and if anybody's familiar with Max Steiner's music, then you'll probably know what this sounds like and what kind of composition this is. So it was re-recorded by, I think it was the Moscow Symphony. Let me just check on that. Yeah, the Moscow Symphony. So John Morgan reconstructed it. William Stromberg conducted. It's on Marco Polo Naxos Music. It is doubled up with The Son of Kong, but the chase music right to the end is I mean, it's the granddaddy of all action cues. It's you know, it's the birth of the action cue. I'm not sure, but it's one of the earliest and one of the greatest. If you can find it on YouTube, check it out. If you can find it on Spotify, check it out. But it's
on Apple.
So if you want to hear, start with the chase, and that's the 28th cue of 32, and just go all the way through to the end because it's just all action music, and it's amazing. It really is. The sheer amount of, like I said, the notes you're listening to, you're like, how can somebody write this plus the rest of the score in 2 weeks? And again, back in the 1930s, and just think about the technology that they had at their hands. I mean, how is he? And by the way, some people complained that it was too Mickey Mousey. So on top of writing great chase music, he's also hitting specific sync points. Back then, you know, without the technology that we have today, could you imagine the work that went into just hitting those moments? It's mind blowing, and it's brilliant music. So it's just great to listen to as well. But yeah, that's one I like to put in the list for sure.
Okay, well, I've got that lined up to listen to. Thanks very much for that. I've got another one here, another John Powell which I meant to say before, but from Night and Day, Bull Run, which is the whole kind of car chase, bike chase at the end of the film, with bulls running through the streets, and it's kind of very. John Powers loves Spanish flavored music, and this is all Spanish flavored, and it's just a riot of color and fun. It's about 4 or 5 minutes. I think it's a great cue.
I think you're right. You bring up something interesting. Like, even if it's not a movie that has, let's say, obvious Spanish influences, the music that he writes, like, I think even like you listen to Guerrilla Chase and it has a very Spanish influence to it. In Solo, he also loves Middle Eastern scales, from what I hear, and that really makes his music unique. I think you can find an example of that in Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Again, a lot of great action material in that score as well. Just a lot of variety in world music with John Powell as well. So it keeps his music sounding fresh and unique.
Daniel, have you got any from your list there that we haven't mentioned yet?
I don't have as comprehensive a list. We've hit most of them, but Last of the Mohicans. Let's say the elk hunt, the canoe scene, the Indian scene where they're chasing after the naughty Indians up on the mountain.
The naughty Indians.
Well, they killed a lot of people. That's pretty naughty.
Yeah, I had that on my list, actually. That one. Promontory, I think it's called, on one of the soundtracks. Do you know what? I had from The Witches of Eastwick, from the end of the film, The Ride Home.
Yeah.
Which has a spirited version of the main theme for the film. But if you've seen the film, it's a very short sequence of Jack Nicholson trying to drive home, and the girls are flinging around his wax effigy, and he's being flung around the car, out of the car. But it's just incredible stunt work on this car, and that combined with this glorious music, it's just a spectacular scene, and it really shouldn't be in that film, but it's just a combination of the music and the spectacular stunt work for a very short sequence, which is him chasing home. That's why I included it. But it's just wonderful.
Yeah. Does the tank scene from Last Crusade count?
Sure, absolutely. Indy's chasing the tank on a horse. Thrilling woodwind writing in that sequence. And when Indy's going up that little hill to jump on the tank. It's great stuff. Yeah, that's pretty amazing material.
You know what? It's a great stunt, him jumping from the horse onto the tank, but it always bothered me because it looks like when he jumps, the tank is nearer to us than he. The distance between him jumping and him landing, it doesn't quite fit to me. He should just drop down behind the tank. That's what it looks like to me, but he doesn't. He bounces on top of the tank. Anyway,
it's possible. Well, I mean, it's much like his bag getting stuck on the cannon.
Yeah, how does that happen?
And why could he just not, like, he could literally just slip out of it if he wanted to, but those things you just don't think about when you're watching for the very first time, but after you watch it like 7 million times, you're like, yeah, that's
whatever.
Exactly.
It's a movie.
It is a movie.
What about Hunt for Red October?
Yeah,
chasing the submarines around at the end.
I'm lukewarm on Basil's music for that score. Love the choral material, just not overly keen on the score itself. And I don't know why. I just kind of maybe expected something different. It complements the movie, but it's not something that I ever kind of return to. And this is one of the greatest of all time. Hollywood Boulevard Chase. Yeah. Which they changed the name of the cue on the La La Land 4-disc or whatever the heck that was. It was 4 discs, maybe more than that. But anyway, 4-film set. I don't even know what the name of the queue is anymore. But Hollywood Boulevard Chase is what they called it on the first expanded edition that came out on Michael Kamen's own label, and it's amazing. There's a similar queue that's on Lethal Weapon 3. Sorry,
Lethal Weapon 2. Lethal Weapon 2 uses the same kind of thematic material as well from Mulholland Chase. But there's armor-piercing bullets from 3, which is a chase as well. Yeah, Gun Battle, I think that's called on the La La Land.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some really amazing, like there's Chinese percussion in there, and really, 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 really cool. And then there's a really amazing unused in Lethal Weapon 4. Again, it's one of those ones like, wow, you write all this and it doesn't even get into the movie, and it's the alternate version of the Chinatown chase. It's the second to last track on the Lethal Weapon 4 album. It's an alternate. It's crazy. That's all. It's crazy how much is in that one cue. Just kind of thick and dense action writing. And it sounds amazing. It's a great recording too. And I like it better than the film version of that cue. And even there's a great chase in that film as well on the highway. Some really great stuff out of Lethal Weapon.
Yeah.
Like even like Kamen was so like, there's stuff in the Three Musketeers that sounds great. Cannonballs. There's the chase into Sherwood Forest from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which I always enjoyed. Kamen was a really good action composer. Very good. And there's no one that sounded like Kamen. That was great as well. He had such a unique orchestral voice. There's no mistake in a Kamen score from anything else.
Something on my list, the Back to the Future skateboard scene, which is like used 3 times across 3 movies in different ways.
Yeah. And I think we were talking about how the re-recording that came out featured the alternate skateboard cue, and we had no idea why it sounded so different until we get the Back to the Future 2 album. And we're like, the Back to the Future album on Entrada, the 2 CD set. You're like, right. No, that makes sense. But yeah, that's a great track. And like even I would say, my favorite, and when I finally got to hear it on its own, was the Libyans attacking, and then that whole chase and the build up to that first heroic playing of the Back to the Future theme. Just the editing on that, the writing, it's thrilling but adventurous. Yeah, it's
85 Twins Pine Mall.
It's so good. Yeah, it's such a dark scene though, right? You keep forgetting that we're talking about nuclear weapons and we're also talking about terrorists and Doc Brown.
Let's use all the buzzwords in this live stream.
Right? What was that?
Let's use all the buzzwords in this live stream.
Yeah. But I mean, I couldn't believe you just forget how dark Back to the Future is and why Marty goes to 1955. You forget about it.
Yeah.
Just seeing Doc Brown get gunned down, you're like, oh, you're right. And then like Marty's about to die. I mean, if he doesn't escape, he's a goner too. It's just so, it's odd.
Okay, I've got 2 Elmer Bernsteins here.
Which you got?
I've got The Great Escape.
Okay.
The chase music for Steve McQueen on the bike, which I love. And I've also got from True Grit as well. Towards the end, where he's racing back to get is it Maddie or Matty, who's been bitten by the snake, and he's just using every means possible to get her help. And just the music that's used for that is just phenomenal, I think. Yeah.
Those are good cues. I'm going to kind of go back a bit further to some of those Miklos Rocha epics. And so would you consider like the chariot race to be a chase?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I'm not thinking about Rocha, actually. I am thinking about the silent movie that was rescored by Carl Davis. And so he scored the silent version of Ben-Hur. I think it came out in 1925. And not too many people realize that, the Ben-Hur that we know and love was actually a remake. But Carl Davis, unlike Roja, because I don't think there's much score in the chariot chase in Ben-Hur.
The actual chariot race itself is completely unscored.
Yeah,
The actual 8 minutes of this race.
And I think it's I think there's a carriage chase, and I think it's Quo Vadis, which I was thinking about with Roja. That's amazing. But there's a 15-minute sequence of the chariot race in this silent film that is completely scored 100% by Carl Davis. And it is, that's a thunderous piece of music, that the big timpanis that he employs. I mean, Carl Davis is a fantastic orchestral composer. And if you find, he did a whole bunch of silent movies. And I think there's a 2 CD set out there just of his silent work. And I think that's actually a really hard album to find that highlights his silent material, which will include portions of the Ben-Hur score on there as well. But Ben-Hur did come out as a separate release. And I think a couple of other ones have come out as separate releases as well. But Ben-Hur, incredible chase music. It's really, really good. There's another kind of similar styled film came out. I'm trying to think when it was. It was called Asterix aux Jeux Olympiques, written by Frederick Talgorn. And I'm going to try to find the name of the cue. This is 12 minutes long, and it's called La Course de Char, and it is, Talgorn does a great job of channeling into a John Williams style of writing. And so if you want to hear a 12-minute piece of sort of John Williams action music, that's another score that, and even the main theme is gorgeous. He writes these wonderful, lush strings. Talgorn's just get everything composed by Frederick Talgorn, and you won't be disappointed. But
how do you spell the last name?
Talgorn. He wrote things like Fortress, Heavy Metal 2000. Heavy Metal 2000 is like a mix of, if John Williams and Jerry Goldsmith got together to write a science fiction score. It's enormous. It's an amazing score. What the hell? I don't even know how to pronounce this in French, but there's a Molaire President, Robot Jocks, The Temp, Les Aiguilles Rouges. Again, I don't know what that is, but that's one of his best scores. There's Fortress, which I think is only available on a promo. Delta Force 2. He wrote a lot of production music as well. So there's a whole library of Talgorn music that's all just, I think it's like the KPM music series. I could be wrong. Yeah, great composer. In that grand orchestral style, that if you like that sort of stuff, then I highly recommend you pick that stuff up. He wrote, I think, an episode of Young Indiana Jones as well.
Yeah, I remember you on Facebook, maybe last year, sometime beginning of last year, recommending Heavy Metal 2000.
Yeah.
And I discovered it on Apple Music, and it's just amazing stuff.
Oh.
So yeah,
It's so. I mean, the film is. If you understand I mean, it's like heavy metal. The first one, it's an adult animated movie. I mean, the artist, who's the artist? I think he did Fire and Ice as well. Very much in that fantasy realm, but I mean, the women in the films are just so scantily clad. It's that's those type of movies. And so the same thing with Heavy Metal 2000, but just not as good. But the music is amazing. I mean, Elmer Bernstein's original score for the first one's really good. But Talgorn, wow. I mean, you watch this film and you're like, he actually makes it better. He makes it watchable. So, yeah, Robot Jocks. Robot Jocks, I think, came out expanded through Entrada.
What about The Lion King, guys?
Yeah, The Lion King. What is there? That's just like the Stampede cue, right? Which is really good. I think that's an iconic piece of action music. It's not one I go back to quite often. I probably should. But yeah, that's really good too. I'm trying to think what else I got here. Oh man. Okay. Would this be a chase? I don't know. I think it's more of a survival cue than anything, but it's in a great action cue. It's the Cadillac Freefall from Terminal Velocity.
That was Joel McNeely?
That was Joel McNeely. And that's pretty amazing action writing. Again, really sustaining that energy throughout 5 straight minutes of material is quite difficult. But I don't necessarily think that's a chase cue. Thinking what else I have here. Not much else.
Okay, well, I've got a couple of older ones, well, 60s, late 60s. I've written down Ron Goodwin from Where Eagles Dare. The chase to the airfield. I mean, there's lots of kind of chasey type music throughout the film, but it's when they get in the bus at the end and they're scooting away, hitting all the pre-planted bombs along the way to bring the trees down. And it's just the relentless music that he does for that chase. And going back to Hans Zimmer briefly, I put down here The Chase from The Rock.
Yes, that I think I have that down here too. I do. I just skipped over it. Yes.
I mean, The Rock is one of those scores where they just took everything they had in their arsenal and just threw everything against the wall. And if it stuck, a lot of it did stick, and they just put it in. Doesn't matter if it's a style. It's just way.
Yeah.
It's a bonkers score, but it's great. It works with the bonkers film. So
it is, and it's surprisingly melodic. That whole chase sequence has this great little theme, and that's a great choice.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. Oh, Mighty Joe Young, yeah, absolutely. You're right. There's that one chase cue, which the music from The Perfect Storm has its roots in that French horn figure. Which then is played in Perfect Storm, and that was a really cool cue from that film. Another one I was going to bring up, and I can't believe we haven't talked about it, is the bicycle chase from E.T.
Oh, that was on my list. That's near the beginning. Oh.
I mean, because I just typed in chase into my iTunes or whatever they call the app now, and I'm like, there's so many tracks called Chase. And I was like, there's a bicycle chase. I'm like, oh yeah, right. How can we forget about bicycle chase? Or the base attack and canyon chase from Independence Day. That's fabulous. It's so good. But I'm gonna go through this and see if I can name off a whole bunch while you guys are still looking at yours.
Before we get too far from E.T., I also had Abandoned and Pursued from the very beginning of the film, which I think is a brilliant cue.
Agreed.
So,
And I even like the alternate kind of concert version that he wrote as well.
Yeah.
Really good
Yeah.
stuff.
I also included here the land race from Far and Away, because they're racing to get to spots of land, and that's just a spectacular piece of music.
That is legendary. Absolutely. Man, there's so many. Holy cow. I mean, there's the chase from Cocoon.
I've got another John Williams here from Superman. I put Chasing Rockets.
Oh my God. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. 100%.
How about some Batman Begins when he's like driving on the rooftops?
Do you know what? I get confused by the titles on the Batman Begins.
Yeah, don't pay attention
pretentious Latin crap things. So
yeah, it's all names of bats. It's scientific names.
Is that what it is? Is it?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah.
So which cue is the kind of car chase cue?
I don't know.
Molossus something.
Right. Okay.
Colossus. I don't know.
Not very helpful cue titles. That's all.
No,
they're not. They're horrible. The Road Warrior. Is that like a movie about chasing around?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Brian May.
Oh yeah.
Not that Brian May.
Nope, you're right. There's a couple of great chases in A Good Day to Die Hard. I mean, good. That movie's just awful, but
is that Marco Beltrami?
Marco Beltrami wrote one of the great action scores for that. I mean, Die Hard's done pretty well in the like a memorable action cue department. And yeah, I don't know how many other chases there are. But Good Day to Die Hard's amazing.
I've got a Die Hard 2, snowmobiles.
Oh yes, correct.
Oh, yes,
that's excellent.
Yeah.
I would say there's some great chase material in Twister, because they're always chasing twisters. that's quite different. Oh my goodness. The T-Rex chase music in the middle of the movie. That's great stuff. And I was so disappointed that music wasn't on the original album. And I can remember buying the album going, man, I want to hear the T-Rex chase music. And must go faster. But then when we finally got it, I was super happy. That's great stuff.
I included a cue from The Lost World, The Hunt.
Oh my God, the San Diego sequence?
No, the
that too. Yeah.
For the hunt.
The cue where they're rounding up the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
But they didn't. It wasn't used in the film, though, was it?
Nope.
Which is criminal, really, because
it is. That movie. Well, the score is chopped to hell in that film, and you can't even take The Hunt and try to match it to that scene because it was so heavily edited. And but yeah, like I mean, even at the last second, they were. I mean, I didn't realize this, but there was a whole other action sequence that's supposed to happen after they get on the helicopters at the end of that movie. Like the T-Rex in San Diego wasn't even a planned thing. They were all supposed to get attacked by pterodactyls or something like that, and I was like, oh, that's pretty dumb. But yeah, that movie just kind of that was a mess, and it's too bad about The Hunt because I've tried my best to kind of match it, and it just doesn't work. And maybe that's one of the reasons why it was dropped. It's an interesting sequence. I just don't see it as ferociously fast paced as it is, as the Williams piece is. So I'm wondering what he scored. I'd be fascinated to see what the original cut was. It's still a great piece of music. Again, one of those great rejected cues. Yeah.
And the other one I had was from Jurassic World for Michael Giacchino. It was Chasing the Dragons. It's not a very long cue, but I think it could, that kind of theme or motif cropped up in the following film as well. I think very briefly. So.
Yeah, and there's I mean, we were talking about James Newton Howard last week. There's the helicopter chase in The Fugitive.
Yep.
Like
we were just talking about that before the show. Where's our reissue of that expanded score?
I don't know. Is it supposed to be reissued?
Well,
it is supposed to be.
No idea.
The Ride from the Mask of Zorro.
Oh yeah. That's an incredible score. I'm trying to think of like The Phantom by David Newman. There's a lot of great action material in that, but I'm trying to think if isn't there a portion where is it a transfer from like a skyboat to the horse, or is it from the horse to the skyboat?
He gets off the plane onto the horse.
Yeah. So I mean, you could almost say he's chasing down the horse to get on the horse, but there's some great, man, that's a great score. This is really, truly great score.
What about The Shadow? They're chasing the bomb through the building. And all that other stuff that's going on at the same time.
The Shadow is so bad. It is so bad.
I like that movie.
Did you?
I didn't. It was disappointing. I mean, it looked great. I thought the actual look of it was fine, but it was just. It was like it was they took some webisodes that weren't really kind of tied together and just bashed it into one kind of film and thought, yeah, that'll work. That was before webisodes were a thing as well.
Right. Oh my God. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible movie, but it features what I think might be Michael Giacchino's very best score next to Ratatouille, Jupiter Ascending. There is a magnificent action track called the Shadow Chase. I think it's called the Shadow Chase, and that's where they're doing that kind of the sky skating or surfing or whatever around the building near the end of the beginning of the movie. It's such a dumb movie, but Giacchino's score, holy smokes, man! That's the Giacchino I knew and fell in love with when he was writing his video game scores. That's some great stuff. I mean, I think it also helped that he wrote about half of that score either before filming started or before they started shooting or editing, and then they basically shot to the music, then inserted music into the film, and then Giacchino had to go back and rework cues. But it was a very unique situation for Michael to just kind of like write a symphony, and then the Wachowskis were essentially editing to the music that he had written. But the Shadow Chase, wow, amazing.
Car Chase from a Beautiful Mind.
It's different. It's different because of what it's scoring, and you don't realize it until much later. I mean, it's not a traditional action cue. It's scoring his panic in the car, which is brilliant, honestly, because it's not happening, right? Yeah. So, but that's a very, very unique way of scoring, action or a chase. You don't hear that too much.
I was just saying it's about a Beautiful Mind. YouTube was playing that the other night on my phone, and I'm like, oh, Sneakers. And I'm like, oh, no, it's not Sneakers.
Yeah, they're very similar.
Oh, my God, yeah. Yeah.
The electric guitars and the chase scene from Attack of the Clones.
But that.
Yeah.
That was a long scene.
It's a very long scene. Again, I'd like to see what Williams was scoring, because again, that's just so brutally chopped up by Ben Burt. And Ben Burt was angry at John Williams for writing music for that whole sequence because he wanted the sound design to be the music in the scene. It's just so poorly handled. And then that's what happens when you got the power to change a frame here and there at any second, and right up to the last second with digital editing. It's dangerous. It's a lot of power in your hand. With great power comes great responsibility. And it's like, guys, lock the freaking picture, please. Lock the picture. But what I thought was very interesting was that, he tried the electric guitar, but I like how in the behind the scenes you can actually hear them talking about it's like, we'll record it, we'll put it in, and if you want to take it out, we've also had a version where that's not in there. So and obviously they didn't use it in the movie, but I thought that was an interesting, unique orchestration that we'd never heard in a Star Wars score before. But I mean, I get why he was doing it. I'm also get why it was taken out, because Zam's ship was essentially a distorted guitar sound as it was flying through, so it becomes very, very confusing. Yeah.
One thing that we haven't mentioned, it's Mummy Returns, my first bus ride.
Holy cow, you're right.
How have we not mentioned this?
I don't know. And that might very well be could that be the best chase scene that Silvestri's ever written? I mean, I don't consider the clock tower sequence a chase scene. I mean, that might just be the ultimate piece of action music he's ever written. But as for chase,
another chase in a similar vein from Silvestri, Van Helsing, Transylvanian Horses, with another similar heroic kind of motif to it.
Yeah. Or there's like the carriage chase from what was that, Robert Zemeckis? Well, not the Polar Express. The Scrooge movie. The Christmas Carol.
Christmas Carol. Yeah.
Wow, what a cue that is. Amazing cue. But yeah, my first bus ride. I mean, it sounds quite different than what Silvestri had been doing up to that point. God, and that theme is so good. That theme, and again, that's that's one of those rare instances where it's like, I wish he had used Goldsmith, but I'm kind of glad he came up with his own, because his own is really, really damn good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, really good. It can be Indiana Jones without sounding Indiana Jones, right? And that's a tough thing to do. It's like you hear people who are trying to sort of copy that Indiana Jones mold and write sort of their own march, and it almost sounds way too corny than it does as a good adventure theme. But Silvestri freaking nailed it with that one. Or much like one of my favorite cues, which again very much Indiana Jones-esque, is the theme from Beastmaster 2. It comes in the track called Dara the Hero. That's a big beefy 9-minute action track. And he writes a very similar styled Indiana Jones type theme in there, and it's just wonderful. So if you've never heard Beastmaster 2, that one is a thematic delight. Glorious score for just a daft movie. But yeah.
Is that Robert Folk?
It is Robert Folk, yes.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't seen Lawnmower Man 2, or I don't remember much of it. I mean, there's a whole bunch of great action music in there. I'm not sure whether there's an actual chase or not, but that's just one of the big heavy hitting action scores of the 90s, I think, as well. Yeah. And then, I mean, we could talk about also, James Newton Howard's Waterworld.
Can I have that one here?
A lot of good stuff in there.
The sled ride from Willow, and I would also throw in the Escape from the Tavern.
I would go with Escape from the Tavern.
Yeah,
more
I've
so
got both
than
those
the
on my
sled
list.
ride. I'm glad we have the sled ride, but I was like, oh, I thought it was longer. But
Yeah.
when I heard it.
I've also gotten here Danny Elfman from the original Mission Impossible, Zoom A
Oh my God,
and
yes.
Zoom B.
Yes.
For that magnificent train sequence, which is only about 4.5 minutes long, but it's just wow. And with that music and with that theme kicking in just at that point, woo.
Yeah. I think when the theme ends, just as that blade almost hits his Adam apple, dun, 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 like,
Yeah.
You win.
Yeah.
You definitely win. Right to dub no. By the way, yeah, but the EDM type chase music for the moon chase and AI just seems so weird. It's so weird. Again, it's almost a cue that seems just out of place with what else John Williams was doing in that score. And I almost maybe preferred him to not to score that. It just seems so strange in that film. But Ride to Dub No. I mean, isn't that just a cue that is written over like the gathering of the heroes as they're riding there, and it's just this big upbeat type piece, and there's no action or chase or anything. It seems like it would be.
But to me, it's horses moving forward, and there's a horse in front of another horse. So one of those horses might be chasing one of the other horses. So by that rationale, it would be a chase. So
I guess
yeah.
Not in traditional sense, but you might be right.
No. But it's a stunning piece of music.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm trying to think of like any more like really great action or chase sequences.
Oh, I've got one here. The Lone Ranger.
Oh, yeah.
The whole train chase and
yeah.
That's the Hans Zimmer, not the John Barry one.
That's the Jeff Zanelli, not Hans Zimmer.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Jeff Zanelli did this, and you can probably tell that it's Jeff Zanelli as well.
Yeah.
It's just 9 minutes of just glorious music.
It is. It is.
Very
true.
And I really enjoyed the film as well. It's another one of those films that got slated, but it's over long, but it's good fun and it's spectacular as well. So we mentioned Total Recall, didn't we? Or we skipped over it, but I wanted to mention Clever Girl and The Big Jump are the two kind of famous action cues. Clever Girl being the foot chase, and at the beginning of ending up in the subway.
Well, you know what's interesting? It's another good one though, and it not a traditional chase, but I mean they are people chasing after each other, but they're sort of in the same contained area. But it's the hologram sequence, and that hologram music is really good too.
Yeah.
Right, and it's very clever.
Yeah. The whole ticking thing.
Yeah.
Love
it. Again, yeah, not a conventional chase sequence, but it is.
Yeah. And
brilliantly scored. God, I love that score. I love it to death. Oh my God. Or oh wow, I was thinking of like, oh, what's the chase in Air Force One? And I was gonna like, oh, it must be the hijacking, but it's not. It's the MiG attack, scored by Joel McNeely.
That's my second favorite cue from that score.
Oh my God. That's how you. I mean, Joel McNeely is such a skillful composer, just taking all those ideas that Goldsmith had, writing it in the Goldsmithian style, but then just injecting a bit more of McNeely's own flourishes into that. My favorite little bit, and I might have mentioned this on the show before, is there's right at the end, one of the fighters is doing like a barrel roll, and he, McNeely's got these wild woodwinds, the piccolos and the flutes, just doing this run, and I'm like, oh, that is such a neat color, right? There's just so much happening, so many banging percussion, big trumpets and everything, and then you have this lovely color of woodwinds that it's kind of mimicking and Mickey Mousing the airplanes, and as they fly around and do the barrel roll, I'm just like, oh, that's so much fun. That's so much fun. Just the fact that you can look at that and go, I'm going to add a little bit of a flourish, much like the, the bells for when Marion gets smoke, or she blows smoke into what's his face, right? During Raiders of the Lost Ark, yeah, and he just adds these little bells to it, and I love that the little playfulness from composers when they're writing film music. That's when you know when they're having a good time.
The piece I love from that cue, it's a big broad piece. It's the music leading up to the American fighter sacrificing itself to take out the missile, and it goes did it did it did it did
yes
did did, and it just builds and you get did did, then you get the crash of the cymbals. It's just, yes.
But it's amazing how simple that is, right? You've got these repeated figures, and what are you going to do? You're just going to raise that last note up just one more, and you just keep repeating that, but it still feels fresh. Like you don't realize it's a repeat until you actually pay attention to it. But you're right. I mean, I love that. It's a very John Williams thing where it's like you have that hit and the cymbals, right? That boom that he always does, and it's all over the land race in Far and Away. That's such a very John Williams thing. That bass drum to cymbal crash. That's one of my favorite things he does. I almost came up with a t-shirt. Actually, I have a t-shirt design that I want to release. It boom quote John Williams. I'm gonna put it in quotes. That's one of my favorite devices that he does. So I'm glad that's in that score. But I mean, Joel McNeely is also just we're talking about combination of Goldsmith and Williams. Robert Folk is like that, especially Lawnmower Man 2. It feels like, John Williams assisting with Total Recall. Frederick Talgorn in Heavy Metal 2000. It feels like, Williams doing some dark side sci-fi stuff, but with Jerry Goldsmith writing in that kind of alien style. And Joel McNeely very much embraced Goldsmith's style of composing after Air Force One, and you can hear that influence in those post Air Force One scores that McNeely was writing. I mean, Virus, for crying out loud, so much Goldsmith in it, but it doesn't sound like a ripoff. But it also has that real kind of lush, colorful orchestration that John Williams has, and I love those combinations. I love it when composers can kind of mix and match different composers and kind of create their own thing. McNeely, Folk, they do it so well. Talgorn does it so well. It's just a wonderful sound.
Getting away from the kind of fast-paced kind of bombastic music, I wrote down one. I've lost it here, but it's Gillian's escape from the Fury for that whole slow motion sequence when they go out into the street. I love that. I just thought it's a different way. Well, you couldn't really score it any differently, could you? Really, if it's all in slow motion. So
yeah, that's a tough thing to score.
Yeah,
I mean, I was talking about this with friends of mine last weekend, and how we all adore Capricorn 1, except the ending. I'm like, have you guys seen Capricorn 1? You know how this.
I love Capricorn 1,
but it's the cue is so good. It's such a good cue, but then it's the stupid slow motion at the end of it, and it is so like TV movie of the week cheesy that you're just like, you have such a great movie. I mean, an incredible kind of political thriller action movie that is Capricorn 1, and if you haven't seen it, go see it. It's awesome, and it's so well scored. I mean, or there's even a portion that last action sequence isn't even scored at all. The helicopter stuff is like, what the hell? What universe is a big action scene like that not even scored? Ballsy, and it works. But the Capricorn 1 ending, you're just watching, you're like, are they really doing this? It's not very good. I don't want to ruin it for anybody that hasn't seen it, but just be prepared for Cheeseball City at the end of Capricorn 1. And it shouldn't have been like that, because it shouldn't have been like that.
You know what? I don't mind that ending.
It's a sequence that's made fun of so many times and so many things. It's like it's much like, everybody making fun of Chariots of Fire. You're running on the beach and you're doing the slow motion thing, and it's like, Capricorn 1 just goes further off, but it's I think it's almost like frame by frame too, right? It's not an actual slow motion sequence. They're just slowing down 24 frame film, and it's very, very jerky. And I'm like, oh no, don't do this.
You do get the feeling though that they were thinking, well, we need to go slow for this ending, and then but we need to find a clear frame to freeze on, and they only found one. It looks like.
It's so weird. It is so tonally off. That's the thing. It's just like, what is happening here? Besides that, the rest of the movie is fantastic. But I mean, and then you talk about action sequences. Capricorn 1 has one of the best action cues in that film. Oh, you want to talk about chases and Jerry Goldsmith? Hot Water from Outland it's not the most up-tempo chase scene in the world, and it was really kind of jarring to finally put the music to the picture when I finally saw it, because again, I heard the score much before than seeing the movie, and I was expecting something just like real high tempo action scene, but it's really not. But it's such man, what a piece of music that is. Holy cow, great stuff.
But it's exactly what that scene needed, because as you say, it's there's not a lot going on. It's just
very true. Yeah, he's injecting
rather than chasing.
Yeah, he's injecting some energy into that sequence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bullet. You know what? I listened to Bullet this morning, and it's amazing how much that's not even an action score. Great jazz, great kind of 70s, rock and whatnot. But it's
But I think everything is scored up till the actual chase starts, and as soon as they go, that's it. The music stops. And it's just...
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's a build-up. There's a really cool build-up to that chase. And that's an exceptional cue from Schifrin. But yeah, they're scoring that sequence would have been awful. Nothing like listening to those two cars go up and down San Francisco streets. I mean, those muscle cars, man, that's a thing of beauty. And it's much like, the comparison might be a little off, but there's a reason why John Williams did not score the speeder bike chase in Return of the Jedi. That thing just works beautifully on its own because the sound design is so awesome. I've tried to put music behind that sequence, and it doesn't add anything at all. And it's so strange. I mean, for movies that are wall to wall scored, it's amazing that one gets nothing, and I love it. Sometimes silence works better than music.
Exactly.
I've got a piece that I'm not sure if it's a chase scene or not, because I've never seen the film. But yeah, Choose Thornfield from Jane Eyre by John Williams. It sounds like chase music.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't tell you. I've been looking to see that movie for the longest time, and I don't know where to find it.
There's a horrible version on YouTube. The picture quality is just like looks like it was pulled out of the air with antennas that are big enough.
I mean, Yavar Maradi and Jeff Cummings try to do their best to analyze the full score on the Baton, the John Williams podcast. That was quite eye-opening. It's the first time I had heard, the cues in the movie that wasn't on the LP. It's just sad that score's, lost forever. Although then again, that's what they said about Space Camp, and then we finally got a complete Space Camp. I think that's what they said about Monsignor, and then we got a complete Monsignor. So you never know.
What are we getting this month?
Is it a Williams this month?
I don't know. It should be.
The rumors that I've heard there's a complete Sabrina coming out.
Really?
Yeah. I've also heard there's a complete Amistad coming out, but I could be wrong. But I've heard the rumors about Sabrina. So yeah, that's what I've heard. Don't take my word for it.
I'd be happy with just a remastered Amistad.
Okay, that's my next video. Erik Woods says is going to be my
next. I mean, look, as long as Mike Matessino is around, he's going to try to remaster every single John Williams score and make that definitive edition. So, but I mean, Sabrina, I listened to Sabrina last month, and it is a lovely, lovely album. And I mean, In the Moonlight is one of my favorite film songs of all time. And there's a lot to like in there. Like that whole dinner sequence that was arranged for that film. It's about 10 minutes long. Beautiful stuff. Yeah, I really like that score.
I'm still waiting on JFK to come out.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, yeah, that would be fantastic. I'm trying to think of any other really good chase sequences.
I've got another Basil Polydorus. Is that how you pronounce it? Is it
Yep.
Polydorus? Right,
Polydorus.
okay. Quickly Down Under.
Oh my God, yes.
The Attack.
Yes.
Love that
Banjos.
key.
Banjos for the win. He also has the van chase from RoboCop.
That's on my list here as well somewhere.
Oh, good.
I had Van Chase and I had Force Shoots Robo as well, which is
yeah.
that kind of tragic building thing. And I classified that as a chase because they are chasing him and he's getting away from them, so it's a chase.
I'm going to go back to last week's show again. And now that you have those two things we're going to talk about this score, you have the end credits to Wyatt Earp now. And what did you think of that cue?
Oh, I meant to message you. Superb.
Yeah.
Superb. I listened to it that night that you sent it to me. So
what a glorious piece of music. Well,
absolutely.
Within that cue is the wagon chase, which is, I think, one of my favorite pieces of James Newton Howard music. It's such a good score. But yeah, wagon chase would be another one I'd put in there. Okay. The finale from Little Princess. Yeah, I guess so. I guess it's anything where you have anybody chasing anybody else, or yeah. I guess so. Although I can't remember what Doyle wrote for that, but it's a lovely score. I'm gonna have to go back to that now. Oh, we can't forget the Flying Circus from The Rocketeer. I mean, yeah, that's about as good as it gets. What a glorious sequence. So much is happening in that sequence. And I love that the hero isn't getting it right 100% of the time. And Horner is playing up to that every time he tumbles out of the sky. Those descending strings, but the second time it happens, the funniest bit is when he salutes the people on the plane and he hits the button off his helmet and he tumbles back down. But during that chase sequence, it might have been the first or second time, but he tumbles down, and it's just so memorable because it's really Horner helping ignite that jetpack up again, and he tumbles in behind the clouds, and because he goes, and then he has this galloping moment, ba-dum, as he comes, flying back out from the clouds. But that galloping moment happens the exact moment the ignition of the jet happens again, and it's like, and it matches the beat of that galloping moment. And so I just feel like, Horner's like, I'm going to get this thing back up in the air with my music. And it's just a wonderful sequence. It's so wonderfully shot, wonderfully imagined. I love that. I love everything about it, but it's also a bit goofy. And I mean, this is the first time he's been up in the air with the jetpack, and he doesn't have it down perfectly. And he doesn't even have it down perfectly at the end of the movie. I kind of like that he's still not 100% proficient with the jetpack throughout that whole film, but especially during that sequence, there's a great bit of comedy, but still a great bit of action, great bit of suspense, and Horner really just, man, that's a rip roaring action cue.
Do you know what, the piece of that cue that's always stayed with me from the first time listening to it is that kind of the hillbilly bit where it goes, the kind of the hillbilly version of the Rocketeer theme.
Yeah,
love that.
Yeah.
And it was watching that I when was it? Was it 91?
91.
Rocketeer? Yeah. Mm-hmm. God Almighty. Anyway, I saw that, and the visual effects I still stand up to today. I think they're still pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, if they ever do, get back to doing Superman again, ILM are going to be able to do a great job with Superman. But they didn't for quite a few years after that. But,
yeah, and I think what they managed to pull off in '78 with Superman actually was actually pretty good. Some of that stuff was really, really convincing. But the Rocketeer, yeah, I mean when that Zeppelin blows up, again, I'm just huge on amazing cinematic explosions. I love them to death. And that gas ball that comes out of that thing, but it's they're running away from it. And it's just blowing up in sequences. I mean, that wouldn't happen in real life. It would just like disintegrate in about 12 seconds. But it's that whole end sequence is, I mean, even the more kind of patriotic, rah, American things that are happening in it. I mean, I get goosebumps. I mean, and usually that's sort of the stuff I just can't stand. But when he is up on, where are they? They're the Griffith
Observatory.
And he flies up and there's the spotlight is shone on the Rocketeer and he's right by the flag. And, he's sitting there with his gun and he looks up and I'm like, oh my God. That is a comic book frame.
USA,
right? And that's where I'm like, oh my God! But you know what? I'm like, that is a cool shot. I don't feel like it's being thrown in my face at that point. I just get it. It's the Americans versus the Nazis, and yeah, they're the good guys. But it just feels like a great comic book pane that you would see, and it was just it's such an iconic shot for me. But yeah, I love that movie. I love that movie so much.
I've got an ILM book here because you mentioned the explosion.
Mm-hmm.
I know they did it twice.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Wow. How big was that model?
It was huge. Yeah, it's somewhere in this book. Another fantastic ILM book.
Yeah.
Into the digital realm. That's the second book.
Wasn't there another one that was really, really expensive to get? It's it's almost impossible to find.
Yeah, that was the first 10 years. This is the second 10 years. So, but they built. I can't remember how big the model was. It needed to be big, obviously, for the flame work that they were going to do on it, the pyrotechnics. But the first one, because it was a sequential explosion going up down the Zeppelin, and it mistimed. So.
Oh no!
So. They had to get the second model. They had two models too. So.
God. Well, it works. The photography of it disintegrating at the end, just that big red ball of flame. It's the image captured is striking. So I love the cinematography in that movie. I just love that movie. It's so good.
Who was the singer in that? There was a Melora.
Oh, I can't remember the name.
Melora Hardin.
Mm.
Lovely looking woman as well. I mean, she cropped up in the Office, the American Office. But she had a lovely voice. She did a couple of songs. She did Begin to Begin and another one.
Yeah.
But lovely voice.
Yeah.
I think When My Lover's Gone was the second song.
That's it. Yeah. Okay, I've got another one here that we haven't mentioned. Minority Report. Anderton's Great Escape. I love that whole cue.
Yeah. This might not be the most popular opinion about that one. And it's a rip-roaring cue. Don't get me wrong. It's another one where it just feels a bit out of place compared to the rest of the score. For instance, the action cue that I like is Everybody Runs. Is it Everybody Runs? I think that's what it is. There's another, or whatever the one where he's jumping from one car to another, his first escape. And it's a little bit more low key with some running strings and dissonant instrumentation, and it's not as, let's say, swashbuckly or over the top as Anderton's Great Escape. And that's where I feel like tonally for the rest of the movie, that whole sequence seems a little strange and over the top, especially kind of the weird comedy, like when they're they crash through one of the homes, and the jetpack ignites the hamburgers or whatever on the right. And it's like, oh my god, okay, this is tonally, it shouldn't be going there. I think. I mean, the rest of the movie is just absolutely bang on brilliant. But that's the kind of cue where, and on top of that, that's the Ludlow's demise stylings that John Williams couldn't get out of since the Lost World. I mean, you hear it in Harry Potter. You almost hear that kind of that dun 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 in all of his scores post the Lost World. There's even a great video. Frank Lehman did the Ludlow's demise cue or whatever, and he managed to capture them all from John Williams 96 on, and that just kind of was his thing in his action writing. But anyway, one sequence that I love out of that cue, though, I love the ticking clock thing that's happening when the arms are assembling the car, and Tom Cruise has to kind of, get out of the way of all those things being constructed, and Williams is coming up with this really odd meter ticking clock piece, which I thought would have been awesome if that was throughout the whole thing, or at least something along those lines, because that just felt a little bit more avant-garde and different, and it would have matched, I think, the tone of the rest of the score. But anyway, that's just kind of my little pet peeve about that score, which I think is actually a splendid score, and a great movie.
A splendid score, but you just hate my choice. Okay.
I don't, and I don't hate it. I mean, I'm critical of the tone of it. The whole sequence just feels a bit off, much like it's the scene afterwards with the old lady in her garden. That just went on forever. It just goes on, and it almost seems rather pointless. But I mean, then again, I mean, there's, and also the eyes thing is, I call this movie brilliant, but I've got so many criticisms about it. Like, the eyes rolling down the hallway, and he, is chasing after it with kind of like that Lex Luthor music underneath it. So, but anyway, besides that, I love that film.
I think I can understand why they injected some humor into it, because if without those little bits of humor, it would be a really quite oppressive, downbeat film. There isn't much room for humor, but I see what you're saying. When there are humorous moments, it does seem a bit crowbarred in there to just a
bit. And I'm trying to think of is whether it's a bit too forced, because I don't mind just a completely dead serious sci-fi movie, but then it gets a Philip K. Dick story. I mean, you see how when you don't inject any humor into a movie, you get Blade Runner. I think Blade Runner is brilliant, but then you get Total Recall, which managed to balance the humor and the action properly. But I think that was set up as, I mean, that's an 80s movie. That's an 80s Schwarzenegger movie with more than half a brain that was happened to be released in the 90s. Minority Report, though, I think could have, for the seriousness of the subject matter, I think could have stayed that way. Just, I think it's more of the goofiness. I don't mind a little bit of humor, but I think it's just, some of them was just so goofy. It just seemed out of place, but yeah. But anyway, it's a solid piece of music. Back to that cue, and it's interesting that they separated the two pieces on the expanded edition. They're in two separate.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm like, oh, okay, interesting way of doing it.
Okay. Another one I've got on my list here is Bruce Broughton from Lost in Space, and his two versions of Through the Planet.
Mm-hmm.
There's the original version, which is kind of a more upbeat, kind of jaunty, kind of, yay, we're flying through a tunnel.
Which I like.
Fun. Yeah, so do I. And kind of repurposed for his end credits.
Yes. Yes.
And then his revised version was a bit more kind of, we're in peril here. But,
yeah.
No,
and see, that's where the reverse would have worked better, because that film, you can expect that type of scoring during that sequence. You can still get the sense of danger, but you can also get the sense of adventure and fun that's happening through it, and it would work wonderfully. And again, I mean, the fact that Broughton put that thing together in a couple of weeks, and the quality of the writing. I mean, he did have some help from Don Davis, but yeah, I mean, Broughton, when he's tasked with having to write at the last second, he comes up with Lost in Space and Tombstone. I mean, there's just there's a sense of quality with a guy like Bruce Broughton. He's just not going to phone this thing in. It's going to be as if he had worked on it for months. And that's what I appreciate about Broughton's work as a whole. It just never seems like it's phoned in ever.
What was the story with Lost in Space?
It was, I think it was going to Silvestri first, because he had worked with the director before on Judge Dredd. It just was a whole series of composers that just couldn't get it done. And I think there was about 3 of them. I think even Goldsmith was asked. There was something was up with the schedule. I'm wondering whether it is actually in the liner notes. And I'm going to pull those out and see if there's mention of who was asked to score it. I'm not sure whether, I don't think Isham was asked. Maybe he was. I know it was about 3 or 4 different composers, but give me just a second.
I know they used for the trailers for Lost in Space. They used the trailer music, or for the first trailer, they used the trailer music from Judge Dredd, Jerry Goldsmith's trailer music from Judge Dredd for it. So.
I might have the wrong version here. I have to find the other version, which I don't have digitally.
What about Young Sherlock Holmes? It's got a couple of chases in it.
I can't really remember the film that well.
It does have a certain cable TV movie quality to it, but
wonderful music though.
The music's amazing.
Oh, okay. So Stephen Hopkins. I don't think it was Hopkins that directed Judge Dredd. Hopkins directed The Ghost in the Darkness.
He also produced the first season of 24 as well, I believe.
Sorry, I'm trying to. Oh, this thing's messing up. Hold on a minute. Stephen Hopkins. He's Predator 2 as well.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
Bruce Broughton landed the job at 2.5 weeks to write the score. I don't see any mention of any other composers listed as possibilities. I thought Goldsmith was asked. I thought Silvestri was asked. I thought maybe Mark Isham was asked. I
remember seeing somewhere in one of the film magazines, maybe about 97 or before it came out, and when they were talking about it was filming, that I know Jerry Goldsmith's name was mentioned at one point.
Yeah. But I'm shocked that there's no mention of it in the liner notes. And I swear I saw this mentioned somewhere before, but it's just all about Bruce Broughton, unless it's in the tech notes. No, I don't see anything. I mean, 2.5 weeks for all this music. That's just silly.
That's like the only thing you're doing for 2.5 weeks.
Well, I mean, what was he doing with Tombstone? He was recording, and then that day they were shipping off the reels to Hollywood. And so they're like mixing his tracks that day while he's still scoring the picture. And it's interesting. They only credit William Ross and David Slonaker as orchestrations in the first Andrada version, the first expanded edition.
Did you say that Don Davis was involved in it as well?
Yeah. Don Davis assisted, but he gets no there's no like special thanks or whatever.
Because he's a renowned orchestrator as well, isn't he, Don Davis?
But I don't even see. Yeah, orchestrations aren't. There's nothing to Don. From what I heard, Don Davis worked on Lost in Space. But now again, you can put this on your list of things Erik said that might not be true.
It's going to be a great show.
Yeah. But yeah, man, Broughton's just, man. I wish he had scored more of the Orville. Yeah. It's too bad he didn't. But
he still can't he?
I'm sure if they ask him, yeah. I mean, they asked him to write a new variation of the theme for season 3, and he did. So, but now they've got 4 composers on board for that series, and it is confirmed that there is a season 3 soundtrack coming out.
Oh, good.
When and where and who and whether it's going to be physical or digital, I don't know. But Seth MacFarlane confirmed it on Twitter that there will be an album coming, which I am happier for Kevin Casca more than anybody else, because that man deserves to have his music heard. And one of his first major projects is the Orville here, and I'm glad he's finally going to get some exposure. And I hope more people celebrate his work. But I would like to know, this is bothering me, this Lost in Space thing.
The location of my book bag's been bothering me all day.
I don't know. It could be somewhere on, the Don Davis rumors on Film Score Monthly. Oh, I'm the one that asked the question. Yeah, that's funny. But anyway, yeah. So I mean, so what's the consensus here of like the 5 greatest action cues, chase cues maybe written of all time?
Desert Chase is number 1.
Yeah, Desert Chase is up there.
So there's 3 votes for Desert Chase. I'll go for that. Does the Asteroid Field make the top 5?
It does in my book.
Okay. What else would we put on there?
About 13 or 14 other cues. If we go by
I got like
Birdman
8 pages of notes here. Like everything we mentioned, I've written down. I got like 8 pages.
Like absolutely legendary chase cues.
For me, I would, if you're talking legendary, I always think of The Great Escape and the music that Bernstein wrote for Steve McQueen and his bike. I remember seeing that as a kid, and just that music sent chills up my spine. Well, not chills, it excited me. It was just perfect for that scene.
Would we put wow, I'm trying to think of like it would be so maddening not to put something from like the Golden Age on there, but you guys haven't heard this Steiner cue, but I think just for its historical importance, it might be on it'll probably be on my list just because of that. And it's a rockin'.
That again? That was
the most
dangerous game.
Again, it's very, very Golden Agey, but the music is delightful. It's amazing that he wrote this in 2 weeks. But like, Futile Escape or A Flying Circus from James Horner might be on there. Was Stealing the Enterprise. Again, Stealing the Enterprise probably for me because it is my top Star Trek cue of all time. I just think that James Horner absolutely rescued that scene. Then, I mean, there's got to be a Goldsmith on the list. Which one, though?
Abandoned and Pursued or The Bicycle Chase?
Oh, yeah, that's good stuff, too. I guess you could make a top 5 for every composer. I mean, that might just be the best way of doing it.
Yeah.
But I think...
Because I mean, I would say we'd have to include the... What's the Lethal Weapon?
Hollywood Boulevard Chase.
Hollywood Boulevard, and then it repurposed for Mulholland Chase in Lethal Weapon 2. I think that is just an almost perfect piece of chase music, and
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that chase is amazing.
Yeah.
I just, man, what a Cayman was so good. It's
Skirwinkle wants the motorcycle chase from Last Crusade. I think there's better music from Last Crusade, sir.
I like Scherzo a lot. I would just say that the Indy's very first adventure just trumps everything.
Minecart Chase.
Yeah, and then you got Temple of Doom. I mean, finding the greatest action tracks of all time, I think it's futile to combine it just into 5. There's so much you would leave out that it's yeah. I'd have a tough time. I would have a tough time, and I don't normally have a tough time coming up with like top 10 lists. I can't do it with this one.
Neither can I, because it has to be a flexible 5. You know,
yeah,
it has to be
a Birdman 5.
Yeah, exactly. Because if we're doing a top 5, my first bus ride has to be in there.
Oh my God, yeah, you're right. I mean, you can do it by composer, you can do it by eras, you could do it even by years. There's just so much. There's just so much of it, and so much good action music. It's tough to put into like a condensed list that would say, yeah, that seems definitive.
And the one thing I didn't mention, very short cue, just over a minute, was from First Blood, Jerry Goldsmith, and it was the truck. When he gets in the truck to when he smashes through the police barricade with that glorious triumphant, a very, very short cue, but just, again, almost a perfect little piece of music.
Yeah.
Truck Drive from Brazil.
Oh, man. Brazil is, wow. It's one I always overlook, but then when you listen to it, and it's just so all over the place. But I mean, that track is quintessential Cayman. Like there's so much from, yeah, so many great cues from Cayman.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we should shine the spotlight on him, but yeah, I miss him a lot. I miss his voice, just his unique view on everything. Coming from rock and roll and then just the way that he scores his film, like it's so different, so very different. Yeah. And memorable. It's just that the tunes were so memorable. Like, I mean, there's a glorious action sequence in Don Juan DeMarco. It's easy to overlook that one as just like some romantic comedy score, but
there was always a quirky sense of humor as well when he was doing action music as well.
Yeah, but when he wrote action music, it was just always powerful. Such strength in his writing, his orchestral writing. Yeah, but it's called Don Alfonso. What a cue! Look that up from Don Juan DeMarco. But then, I mean, oh my God! Like I said, I think I brought it up. Three Musketeers. So much fun. I think there's a carriage chase in that one. And that you put that and Robin Hood side by side, you'll have a good time. Great music.
Yeah.
but I think we've come up with some pretty good tracks. I mean, there's so much you forget. I mean, there's a whole gigantic action sequence in the Seahawk, more kind of like battle cues, but that's a lot of fun. There's oh my god, what's the name of the track? It's from Mutiny on the Bounty.
Which one?
Caper.
Right. Okay.
Outrigger Chase. Man, that's ferocious. It's 2 minutes long, but it's amazing. It is amazing. One of the last true great Golden Age epic scores. Just like right on the edge of the Silver Age. That is a mammoth score. And I knew nothing about it until Film Score Monthly released it on that massive 3 CD set. And it catapulted up to being one of my top favorite scores of all time. And I saw the movie, and it works so well in it, and some great special effects in that film as well. But the Outrigger Chase, very, very, very modern. Like it could be put in a film today, and I don't think it'd be out of place. But go check that one out. But yeah, if you can get the FSM release, I mean, you talk about great soundtrack releases, that's one of them. And I think it's because he also wrote, if I'm not mistaken, like 3 different scores for the film. I could be wrong about that. I know Basil Poledouris did something similar on that name of the movie's what's the name of the movie that he wrote 3 different scores on with Kurt Douglas? Not Kurt Douglas, Kurt Russell. Breakdown. Yep. I think on Mutiny on the Bounty, if I'm not mistaken, Caper wrote 3 different scores or scored a lot of alternates.
Excuse me a second.
Yeah. But yeah, it was one of the last kind of big roadshow productions in 1962. So the film's post-production was so protracted that each and every cue was recorded 2 and sometimes 3 times. First in March of 1962, then in June, and then again in September and October. Fans have long known about 2 different endings to the score, which appeared on different editions of the LP. So there's 3 different programs split over 3 CDs on the release. It's fascinating. 10,000 copies, and it's out of print. They sold 10,000 copies of Mutiny on the Bounty? Wow. That's incredible.
What's it going for now?
This is a good question. The original price was $59.95. Mutiny on the Bounty, what, like eBay?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
All right.
My neighbor was picking up a parcel. So.
Mutiny on the Bounty. Nope, that's not it. Right now it's $7. What? I'm thinking this is gonna be fake. $7, and it's got like 1 rating, and I'd avoid, I guess, listings like that, right? I don't know. Like, what's it on Discogs? Off the vinyl. CD. Highest was $139. Median is about $44.99. The lowest was $20. So maybe $7 is right. It says it's out of print on Film Score Monthly. Maybe it's not out of print. Well, anyway, get it. I mean, it's a lot to get through, but it's brilliant. It came out 2004, so maybe it is all out of print. I don't know. It's a classic, so. Yeah.
Well, I think if we put all what we came up with today, it should be like a 12 CD box set.
Yeah, because we'd have to include the full scores with each of these tracks as well.
Right.
So
Oh, that's probably like a 25 disc box set.
yeah.
But I think there's a lot of great choices and a lot of great input from our chat as well.
What are we talking about next week, Mr. Eric?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm wondering what would the chat like to make suggestions as to what we want to talk about? What do they want to hear us talk about? I mean, I can come up with a whole bunch of stuff, but I'm curious as to what they might want to listen to us gab about for 2 hours and 17 minutes. I can't believe we've gone on for that long. It hasn't felt that long.
I've got 4 more volumes of my notes. If
Part 2.
We'll be back for part 2 next week.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, we can. I can come up with some ideas.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be a composer or anything. It can be anything to do with film music, really. Can't it?
Yeah. But I'd be interested to hear what everybody else wants to. If there are still people in the chat, I'm wondering whether our guest wants to talk about. What do they always talk about? Cabbage.
Yeah, he does like cabbage.
Best scores with cabbage. Yeah.
Cabbage Patch Kids the movie.
Cabbage, yeah. What is it? Wasn't it Retro Reels that put up Garbage Pail Kids?
Yeah.
Oh man, I can't believe they made that. I
They
can't
were
believe there's a soundtrack for it.
They were quite popular back in the day.
Yeah, I remember them quite vividly. Fascinated by them, but I never collected them. But I didn't know there was a movie, and it looks horrifying.
Yeah, they were frowned upon at Catholic schools.
Oh yeah, I mean they were filthy, but they were fun. But
is there anything y'all want from California?
From California?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, when do you head out?
Friday morning.
Oh wow, and you're gone for how long?
2 nights, 1 day.
Okay, so you will be back for Monday.
Yeah, I get home Sunday afternoon.
Okay. Ooh, favorite decade of film scores.
Oh, can we make something harder, please?
Favorite. Okay, here's a debate that I had with somebody whether 1982 was better than 1989.
Oh, we were talking about that the other day.
Yeah.
Or what was the greatest year of film scores? And I had an argument with somebody saying that, or discussion that 1962 is arguably the greatest year of film scores. And he made a really good point. But yeah, favorite decade of film score. I mean, yeah. I mean, I could wax nostalgic about the 80s and 90s for sure. And it's just where I grew up. It's when I grew up. I mean, obviously, a lot of our choices here are based more on the last like 40, 50 years of film music. So, but we should maybe pick a decade or pick a year again and discuss that year. Like,
1927.
Sorry?
1927.
1920. We can do 27. Yeah. Let's get on that. But 99 was amazing. 99 might be a good conversation. 2001 was a great year. 2004 was a great year. Or just maybe some underrated scores. We talk about underrated scores or scores that people should listen to that we really like that maybe others don't know about. I don't know.
Oh, and like in my mind, everyone likes the same things that I like. So it's,
That's one way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Gerwingle is 1927. So you got Berlin and Wings. Okay.
Wings is fun. That was the first Academy Award winning score, so I think.
Okay. Well, we've covered 1927. Let's do 19.
Yeah. On to 1928.
Yeah, we could. I'm just trying to think what else is going on. Well, anyway, just kind of wasting time trying to think. 5 minutes of
Yeah, yeah, maybe.
Well, Eric, you ponder it and you let me know, and I'll get it posted.
Okay, all right. But, I mean, I've got playlists for millions of different things, and so I'll go and look and see if I can. Well, okay, all right. Let's talk about film composers, but their classical works. Does that work?
I'll have to do some homework, but that's fine.
I mean, there's things we can discuss, or I can send you a list of notes, but you got Goldenthal's Othello, you have Kamen's guitar and sax concerto, you have all the John Williams stuff. We talked about James Newton Howard's violin concerto. Wojciech Kilar wrote a bunch of concert material.
I love his Exodus piece.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think of what else I had on like classical. I did a show. I've only done one, and I should do more. But I got a whole playlist of this stuff. But it'd be more so like not like I wouldn't pick any John Corigliano stuff because he's mostly a classical guy who wrote 4 film scores, so I wouldn't pick his stuff. But I'd be like, John Barry or like Bruce Broughton's written some concert material. Like, would you add Aaron Copland? Because I think Copland's more of a concert guy than a film score guy. But Patrick Doyle and Dudley, Danny Elfman's classical works are amazing. So we can go through the list. Even Jerry Goldsmith has written, it's Crisis Apollo. There's his music for orchestra, which is magnificent.
Roja did some classical works.
Yeah, Roja did. Holdridge did. So James Horner has. So I mean, there could be a lot we can discuss. And I don't know whether you want to do a top 5 list, like we all come back with like our 5 favorites and discuss them or whatever. But maybe you want to talk about film composers and their classical works.
Yeah.
I could do a top 5.
Okay, cool. That'd be fun. Let's do that then.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you said Goldenthal did an Othello?
Oh my God, Goldenthal's done a whole pile of them. He did an opera. He did Fire, Water, Paper, Vietnam Oratorio. Then he did Othello, which is his symphony, or maybe it's his opera. I can't remember. Then there's a symphony in G sharp minor. I think that might be based off of Final Fantasy and Sphere. I could be wrong about that one. He did a string quartet. Yeah, a lot of interesting stuff. Like Don Davis. I don't know if his classical music has been released, but I think he did an opera. But I don't think that one's come out yet. But Goldenthal's material is really, really wild. Yeah. And I think like the Symphonia of London just recently did a recording of Korngold's classical material. This is very good. But yeah, we can have a whole discussion on your 5 favorites. And like, I mean, I would love to bring up, well, I might. I'll bring up Andrew Pierce. I'm going to bring this up right now, just so that you can listen to it before we come back next week. Are you guys familiar with Cinema Symphony by Andrew Pierce?
No.
It's a wonderful piece of music that is basically a love letter to film music, written in, again, a very John Williams, Jerry Goldsmith, Miklos Rocha style, and it's very good. So he's written that, and he wrote a wonderful trumpet piece called The Maestro that was written expressly for his name, Philip Cobb, who I think is the principal trumpet, or was the principal trumpet. I'm not sure whether he's currently, of the London Symphony Orchestra. A wonderful piece. And like, I mean, Robert Folk has written a ballet. Mancini's written some stuff. So, yeah, I see it. John Powell's, Hubris is marvelous. So there's a lot of great stuff you can listen to. But you guys need some more suggestions, so I guess I can send you some stuff.
I think that's good. I mean, I can do some research on my own, come up with some things.
Okay, cool. Sure. Yeah, that'd be good.
I know we don't normally like converse beforehand, but if y'all could get me what y'all picked out, maybe by like Saturday, so I can download it and listen to it on the plane ride home.
Okay. All right.
That way we just, because in case we pick things that the other one hasn't heard, at least this way we can all know what we're talking about.
Okay.
When we bring up the piece.
Sounds great. I think that's a good idea. I think that'd be a lot of fun to, and yeah, I'm seeing a whole list from the chat, but yeah, if you guys come in with your favorites as well, that'd be great. I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about these ones that you're listing here, but I always find, I mean, the classical music most of the time is really, really good. And I find John Williams' stuff to be the most challenging because it's just so vastly different than what you're used to from Williams. A lot of it's super challenging material to really enjoy. I have a hard time sitting there and going, man, I love this. Technically it's amazing, but a lot of the classical music is stuff I cannot get into. I only like a few. I mean, like, I want to listen to that one again. So I don't know if you're going to see John Williams on my list. Unless it's like a separate piece that's like kind of those like event pieces. Like, are we going to add event pieces, or are we going to do like traditional classical?
I think if we do event pieces, it's going to be like Olympic this, Olympic that.
Yeah,
Olympic
that's right.
Those. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just do like concert hall stuff. I think that would be fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
All right, so we'll be doing that next week, y'all. I hope y'all enjoyed this list of great chase music. Ian, you got anything coming up this week on your channel?
Yeah, there will be. I'm off for one more week, so I'm going to do some more stuff. Probably do some more silly stuff as well.
Do you do anything with that train track you found?
No, it was literally, I looked over a wall and I saw an overgrown train track, and I just thought, oh, that's pretty. So I took a photo.
Go back and make a video about that.
If it's decent weather tomorrow, I'll go back and try and get down there as well.
All right, Eric, what you got coming up this week?
That's a good question. But I just launched a new episode about an hour before we started here. I'm getting back into covering new releases, new scores, something I haven't done since 2018. But a friend of mine suggested that maybe I should take another stab at it, because he said he would rather listen to a podcast talking about new releases than go on Spotify and listen to music that way. And I thought, oh, that's kind of odd, because I thought it would be the other way around. You know, people have access to streaming and it's an easy way to go and discover music. So I just released a show called Scores of the Month, where I review my favorite stuff from August. And I'm going to be doing that monthly now. I'm going to pick the favorite things that I like during the month and just, play them on the show. So if you're into that sort of stuff and you kind of miss my new releases program, then maybe you'll like this. There's a lot of great stuff on the show, including, oh my God, if you haven't heard this score, You got to. It's called Tad the Lost Explorer and the Curse of the Mummy. It's basically a children's 3D animated film out of Spain. Zacarias M. de la Riva is the guy who wrote the music, and he's written music for all 3 of these films. They're obviously based on Indiana Jones. The writing is sensational. So good. Thematic, leitmotivic. It's amazing, the writing that he put into these series. And great main theme for the character known as Tadeo Jones. But I play that at the end of the show, and it's wonderful. Wonderful. You don't expect to hear an action adventure score of this sort these days written that way. So that's one of the recommendations amongst others. And Daniel, if you're a fan of John Williams and Superman, you'll love DC League of Super Pets.
Okay.
By the way, you are a dog lover. Have you seen that movie?
I am. I think so. Yeah.
So you've seen DC League of Super Pets yet?
I haven't. No.
Delightful, a lot of fun.
Okay.
And as a pet owner, you'll be in tears by the time that movie ends.
Okay. See, I saw Secret Life of Pets like years ago, and I love the score by Alexander Desplat, but I did not enjoy the movie. I was like, yeah, no.
This one was surprisingly fun, and to say that about a DC film these days is rare. So it's a callback to classic comic book movies. It's very good. I like it a lot, and it's very funny, and it has 3 great classic score cameos all in one sequence. Wonderful. And Jablonski, it's one of Jablonski's best scores, I think, since Steam Boy, which he wrote in 2004. So I think it's a very, very good score.
Okay, I will check it out.
Yeah.
And no show this Wednesday. I may have something spur of the moment between now and then. And I may have something from California. We'll have to wait and see. But all of us will be back next Monday, and I hope you will too, for orchestral works by film composers. So do your homework. Expand your mind. Adopt, don't chop, keep listening to great film music, and we'll see all of y'all next week.